He has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. He's the brilliant Michael Shure. Hello, sir. And I want to acknowledge, before we get too deep in the conversation, Michael Albertin, thank you for a $50 super sticker. And wow, I think it's a...
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to you, sir. Thank you very much for the super sticker. We're a crowd-funded show, Michael Shure. That's why I like to make a big deal out of the part of the crowd that does fund us. So,
and I get credit for. I mean, this was funded during my segment, as far as I know. So, this segment has brought in $50. That's
technically it did come in during Kim's news. I don't mean to.
Kim, how are you?
If that were true, it would have been announced then.
There you go. Wow, this is really. We'll have to litigate this.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
Yes, let's recess this. And but just back burner it. Michael Shure, you know, I have mad respect for you. And I was reading a piece today from George Skelton in the LA Times. He writes a lot about Sacramento and about California politics. Essentially, the piece is about why Donald Trump's supporter base is unshakable, and that he can say all of these wild things that he says. He can tank the debate. It doesn't matter. Whereas the Democratic support is sort of dependent on issues and performance and this kind of thing. This is his general notion that the disenfranchised voters of the Central Valley and up in some of the northern counties of California feel as though the system's forgotten them. It is essentially the same thing that we were hearing in 2015-16. I'm wondering, I was reading the piece this morning and I thought, wow, I mean, if we're re-racking the same kind of issue-oriented and disenfranchised oriented group, could we end up with the same results?
Well, I mean, he's not wrong, but they are still a cult of personality, and I small c cult, right? I mean, I'm not labeling them as anything. I'm not qualified to do that, but there's been nothing that's happened that would shake them, and they enjoy being part of this club. So it's very different than a lot of politicians. And I would argue that, let's say Barack Obama were to have been able to run for a third term in 2016, right? He probably would have, if that were allowed, and he probably would have won. And people on the right would say, how can people stick with this person, right? Well, it's a lot of the time it's the alternative, right? These are people who have been trained almost to hate the liberals, to go after anything that is liberal. And who do they get those signals from? They get them from their quarterback, and that's Donald Trump for the time being. And so while I think Skelton's right, I'm not surprised by it. It's kind of the way political behavior has worked forever. The disenfranchised at the turn of the century were, they were behind different people than we have now, the different types of people than we see now. And so I think, to my belief, that it's not that surprising. I think what is surprising is that there are people that are starting to fringe away from that and pull themselves away from his tight base, who are going to either be less interested in the game because their lives didn't change drastically in those 4 years, though they've been told they have, and a lot of them parrot the fact that they have, or the idea that they have. I think that that's what's more surprising, is that it's splintering as much as it seems to be. And now, again, he could win the election, he could win the presidency back, and it would be because of everything that Skelton's saying. But I think that those people who are looking for something different, who don't like the establishment, who like to kick the boss in the nuts, as it were, those are the people that are going to be, with Trump, and they're going to be unshakable.
What I thought also striking about his comments and about statistical representations of where California voters sit is the fact that in the Central Valley, there are a lot of agricultural interests that are dependent on immigration labor to get that agriculture done. And so it's always interesting to me to see these communities that are far more represented by immigrants than many of the even urban communities that populate California, LA, Sacramento, San Francisco, San Diego. and still have that pushback on this immigration issue because, 87% feel immigrants are a burden on California. When you add other issues like climate change and these things related to energy that affect California, they still put immigration above it all. And yet they are in that, bouillabaisse of California agriculture, which is so dependent on the ingredient of immigration.
Yeah, and it's interesting that a lot of them will find that one issue and stick with it. The reason that Republicans have always been successful in that part of the country, and if you just to put names to it, people like Kevin McCarthy, people like Devin Nunes, is because it's been anti-tax. Those people feel overburdened by land tax, property tax, water tax, all of that, and that's a lot of why they've been Republican for so long. But on issues of immigration, once you have a wedge issue, they're also looking at their towns and villages and the changing face of those. Eventually, it's going to be, majority Hispanic in those places, and many of them already are. And so it's the decision makers aren't going to be the white landowners, as it were, if history is repeating itself in America. And so I think that this is probably just a growing pain. But again, these are people who has the pitchforks? Literally, farmers do, right? And these are the people that are behind Trump now, the way they were behind William Jennings Bryan 100 years ago, the way they are behind the people that sort of push back. In a sense, they're a lot like Bernie Sanders. There's a populism that that informs all of those candidacies and movements and different ways. So I think that the magic of Donald Trump is that he was able to seize upon it. The magic is that he is, in a way, has always been one of them, in that he was always excluded from the old boys club in New York. He was from Queens, New York, a borough that wasn't Manhattan at the time when all the money was being made in Manhattan. He was looked at as sort of, gaudy and brash, and he wasn't part of that network of wealthy people in New York, even though he was quite wealthy. And so he's the same person they are. And while he wouldn't want to hang out with any of the people or many of the people who support him, he certainly is able to tap into that because he's been on that side.
It's also the fact, as suggested here by political consultants like Mark Baldessari, is that how he says his last name? Who is he was the chief pollster for this latest poll in California.
Well, it's amazing how much pronunciation I've been asked about.
I know it's a very pronunciation heavy show today.
Yeah. And that's why Trump is having a really hard time.
Well, he was saying that for a lot of people who feel, again, not seen by government, not seen by whatever government, right, historically over the last decade and beyond, the supporting of Trump is like an FU. It gets attention, and all of a sudden they're seen. And this quote, a sizable portion feel the government is the problem, not the solution. They feel ignored. One way to get attention is to say, I'm for Trump. Listen to me. Interesting,
And very true. I mean, I've seen that on display all over the country, and it couldn't be more true and more correct and more spot on. It's also why I think once Trump is gone, many of them will fade back into the woodwork and not be a big part of the political conversation. Many will stay because they like where they are. It also explains J.D. Vance in a way. The gambit that they were making on Vance was that he could be someone who could take that baton and hold MAGA together, because that's what MAGA is. It's the people you just described, Mark, and Baldessari described. But Vance has proven that, well, maybe he can't, maybe he doesn't have that magic. And very few do. Like over the years in American politics, very few have had the magic. Maybe Ronald Reagan had it. I wouldn't say that Bill Clinton had it. He had some kind of a magic, but there wasn't a spell that was cast. And Trump is one of those people. When he is gone, it's a unique spell that he casts. And when he is gone, I feel like a lot of the people that follow him will leave the stage for a while, unless somebody with his charisma comes out.
I couldn't agree more when it comes to those things that quack like Trump, others who've tried the Trump act. Look at Ron DeSantis. He is the flavor of the month for a couple of months, and then he just he just doesn't have the same power charismatically or whatever. So I want to get to something that I was saying, and I wanted to see, and I promised everybody I would ask whether you agreed with me. This thing about Haitian immigrants and the focus on them and the doubling down on it, and they're eating our cats and dogs, and they're coming here by the millions. That's the jetliner line that he keeps going to. He used it in the debate, and then he goes to this Laurel Loomer hatched a conspiracy, or maybe it was a J.D. Vance hatched conspiracy that Laurel Loomer echoed, I suspect, in his head. However, the origins of the story got into the debate, the pets and their eating them thing is getting noisier, and they've doubled down on it. And here's the bad news part of that I was saying, and this is what I'm curious whether you agree. I was saying, yeah, it's silly, it's funny, even as we look at it, so stupid. It has been debunked. It was debunked in the moment as when he mentioned it on stage, but it puts the immigration issue, even as awkwardly as it might put it on the front page, it puts it on the front page, and it puts it in the news cycle for yet another day. And the immigration issue they view as a winner, and it may be legitimately a winner for them. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wedge issue, and wedge issues in presidential campaigns always have success. They are always what the Republicans have typically done better than the Democrats. The Democrats right now look at Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs decision and abortion as their wedge issue here. The more it's on the front page, the more it's talked about, the more it puts people on the defensive. I think dismissing it and having your extremists be the ones who are echoing at that point is probably the best course of action for the Democrats. But yeah, it does have its effect in reminding people that when this is what Republicans want to do, that there is an other at play here, and the other are these immigrants who eat pets and do strange things. But at its bottom line, it's that it's about other.
This from Mindy. Trump is ruining the lives of Haitian people right now. So wrong. Some are leaving the country because of Trump. Here in the red state of Pennsylvania, red part of Pennsylvania, I should say, from Miracle Seeker, they don't care if you see them. They have hate in their hearts. These are Trump supporters that a Miracle Seeker is talking about. This is in relation to being seen. They have hate in their hearts, and they want to vote for the one who they think will hurt others, even if it has a negative effect on them. Interesting. That sort of speaks to, go ahead.
I mean, that's a good point that the viewer listener
Miracle Seeker
makes, because there is that silent part as well. Not everybody is this sort of flamboyant Trump, provocative type of supporter. It's just that he does appeal to those people, and there is definitely a sense that those people are the mouthpieces for him. But there are certainly people that are supporting him and will, and there are people that vote from hate. I don't think it's the majority of those voters, and I think there are people that are Republicans that know, and there are people that are conservative evangelicals that care about the single issues that make it so that none of it is all right, but each part of it is correct.
And this is from Phineas, and I disagree with this, but and I think you kind of were saying, no, you need to dismiss it and not indulge it too much. But he says, Mark and Michael, Harris should go to Springfield and hold a press conference to dispel these lies and racism. I don't think you should dignify it and elevate it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why he says that that's a good idea. If I were the campaign, I would sort of let it be what it is and not amplify it. And if I lost that argument, I would compromise and say that Walz should go there and not Harris. I think that you want to keep the nominee, the dignity of the conversation if you're the nominee. So it's not something that I would do. I wouldn't even send a surrogate, but I see why someone would say, yeah, let's show that this is right. I don't know how you win that argument, right? Because the people that believe it's ridiculous. The people who don't are like, oh, now they're really talking about this? Really?
Right, exactly. My next door neighbor, says Brian, has a $200 Trump flag flying in his yard every day. Wow. I mean, I feel like you've overpaid for a Trump flag if you've paid $200.
Especially since it was likely made in China.
Yeah, it's made in China. And I hope they threw in a Bible and one of those playing cards with the flag. So you were so kind to join us the day after the debate. I wonder if you could now, with a couple of days past the debate and dust settling, give us some thoughts on how the race is now taking on a kind of texture post-debate and how you think it might unfold.
Yeah, I mean, it was a close race before the debate. It was a close race after the debate. I think a lot of Democrats were warmed by what they saw, in that they saw a candidate who they hadn't really seen out there. It's a little bit of what we talked about on Wednesday. Hadn't really seen, and while they supported her because they're anti-Trump and they're members of the Democratic Party, they hadn't seen her in action. And I think that everyone was kind of relieved. I mean, you have to think of the Democratic electorate as an electorate that at the end of June saw their nominee and were panicked. And I think this was just kind of like, this was like eating an edible for a lot of Democrats the other night. And I think it was calming. But there's still work to be done. And the election is still close. And the battleground states didn't just become not battleground because the nominee did well in a debate. I think what it did do, though, is there's a bit of confidence. There was confidence in the Democratic National Convention because they had a nominee and they were united. Then they come out of it. Now there's confidence because this person could stand up to Donald Trump. But she also has to win in states, and she has to be able to do things that keep that coalition together. But I think that, I would say that it remains good. And I think that you go for what it isn't, right? It remains good because it wasn't bad. We're not talking about, oh God, Kamala Harris blew this and couldn't answer that and stumbled on this and seemed strange and wasn't loud and all the things that you could pick apart a candidate for in a debate. No, we're not talking about that now. Right? We're talking about, the battleground states again. We're talking about issues, and we're talking about crazy, weird things that the other person said. So in and of itself, that's a victory too.
The other thing that the Harris people are saying is that she's going to start doing more sit-down interviews with local media in these battleground states. So she is going to get out in these interview situations. And so far, she's only done the national television interview sit down, but that they're saying will put her out there in ways that she's not out there right now.
No, it's super important, and you want to get on the air in those states, but also they're all when you're the nominee of the party within 50 or 60 days of the election, every interview you do is national, right? I mean, so you're sitting down with the local station in Detroit, Michigan, right, with battleground state. Whoever does that interview, it's going to go all over the country and probably all over the world. So every mistake will be amplified, and every sort of forceful and provocative thing that person says is going to be amplified. So I think they all become national, but it's a good thing. And I think that that's part of the swagger and the confidence that come out of doing well at a debate. Hey, I can ride this bicycle without the training wheels.
They have many surrogates, both top of ticket people do. Trump has them and Harris has them. And the surrogate that is, to me, just an extraordinary addition to the Trump game is one that we've touched on before, and that's Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
So after the debate, he went on Fox News and he said, Harris clearly won the debate. And stick with it, though, because he's very sharp, in prosecuting a negative kind of view of Harris. Harris clearly won the debate in terms of her delivery, her polish, her organization, and her preparation. But he said the substance of her message will collapse in less structured settings. So, again, he's looking for ways to, assail her work. But there's a lot of that. Wait till you learn more about her,
Right. With surrogates like these, who needs enemies? I don't. Look, my feeling about RFK Jr. is that he doesn't really have a constituency, and any constituency he had was a none of the above constituency. And now that he's with one of the above, I think he has lost a lot of the power and the compelling part of him that he had prior to his joining the Trump campaign in the way he has. So I don't see him as being a factor. He is one surrogate, but he matters very little now. I think what matters is his not being on the ballot in places where Donald Trump didn't want him on the ballot. So they'll suffer whatever he says because it doesn't really impact very much.
And of course, there are all of these surrogates, Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard, and they all have their little specialty lanes. Gabbard is in the military. And
Gabbard is also leading his debate prep, so I don't know how well.
Yeah, oops, right. But Gates says that Harris has been wrapped in bubble wrap for the entire. Now you're going to actually see her get bumped around.
Well, the bubble wrap came off, Representative Gates. It came off on Tuesday night in Philadelphia. So I don't think that that's a great persuasive way of talking about things because, in fact, she was unprotected with no body armor or anything. She was just there alone on the stage with her opponent and did quite well, which is why I think, as you just said, Mark, she's going to be doing all these interviews. She's comfortable in that space now.
Did I? I'm going to let you go in 1 second. Albert, did I send to you, I think, Harris and the Democratic Party's best surrogate? Or certainly, if he's not the best surrogate, it's a photo finish. And that's Pete Buttigieg. Did I send you the Pete Buttigieg stuff, Albert, or not?
You did. Let me cue it up.
I think that we should talk about one of her inadvertent surrogates, which is Taylor Swift, too, and not make light of it. What a celebrity! I hate celebrity endorsements. I don't care about the celebrities, and I'll get angry with a celebrity who endorses for seemingly no reason or makes their whole celebrity about their endorsement. But the people that then vote or register to vote because somebody like Taylor Swift is in there, that becomes really important. And there have been apparently tens and tens of thousands of younger voters who have registered since she came out with her endorsement. There's nothing like an endorsement that gets people who were not registered to vote to register to vote.
Right. That is the distinction. That it's not just it's the new voters, if you want to think of it that way. Now,
exactly. Great. Bruce Springsteen's a Democrat, and he'll play on the night before election in the middle of the street in Philadelphia. All the power to him, and it's a great kumbaya moment for Democrats. But what does that matter, right? Yeah, maybe some Bruce people will vote for it, but tens of thousands of new registered voters in an election that cumulatively could be decided by 50,000 votes. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's something. And she didn't say vote for Kamala Harris. She said, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. You vote for the candidate that you feel,
somewhat implicit, though.
Yeah, right. I get it. Wisconsin voter registration bumps by 1,300 after Taylor Swift's Harris endorsement. Yeah. As you say, with thin margins, it might really throw it. I think I don't have time to play Pete Buttigieg, but we'll play it next time. But he's just I find him to be a real compelling surrogate. He does a nice job.
Totally agree. And he also goes into what is considered enemy territory and doesn't care about who he's speaking to in an interview, whether it's Fox or MSNBC. He'll go anywhere and talk about what he wants to talk about. And he's a brilliant speaker. But I wasn't meaning to demean his importance as a surrogate. Of course, he's an important surrogate.
But he does shrink in terms of importance, as anyone would, next to the great Taylor Swift. Yeah. You can find Michael across the great web, work on TYT, et cetera, but we love him here when he is so generous to stop through. Thoughts on the Niners quickly?
A good win. They shouldn't have let that last touchdown across. And it was good to see Jordan Mason do well. They're 1-0. They play the Vikings. Onward.
There you have it. Michael, thank you. Great seeing you, my friend. Look forward to next week. Michael Shure. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.